There are nights in baseball that just feel different the moment they begin, and if you were watching the Dodgers and Twins square off at Target Field, you felt it almost immediately, that electric tension that settles over a ballpark when something significant is about to happen, when the air itself seems to hold its breath waiting for the first real moment of the night to arrive, and it did not take long, not long at all. Because before most fans had even settled into their seats, before the vendors had made their first pass through the aisles, before the crowd had fully found its rhythm, Shohei Ohtani stepped into the batter's box to lead off the entire game. And look, we talk about Ohtani constantly on this channel. We talk about what he means to baseball, what he means to the sport globally, what it feels like to watch a player who exists on a completely different level than almost everyone who has ever played this game. But sometimes words just fall short, sometimes you have to witness a moment to truly understand it. And what unfolded in those first few seconds of this game was one of those moments that reminds you exactly why this man has captured the imagination of an entire planet. Ohtani dug into the box, locked in, composed, that famous stillness that comes over him before every at-bat, like he's the only person in a stadium holding 50,000 people. Zebby Matthews was on the mound for Minnesota, a young pitcher trying to establish himself at the highest level, trying to prove he belongs, and to be fair to Matthews, he made a decent first pitch, got Ohtani to watch it go by. Okay, nothing wrong with that, you want to see what a hitter is doing, you want to test his patience, but then came the second pitch, a changeup, and here is where everything changed, here is where the night shifted on its axis, because Matthews left that changeup right over the middle of the plate, belt high, spinning right into the sweet spot of Ohtani's vision, and any pitcher who has ever faced Ohtani will tell you the same thing. You cannot make that mistake, you simply cannot do it, because what Ohtani does in that fraction of a second between pitch recognition and contact is something that defies easy explanation. His brain processes the spin, the velocity, the trajectory, and before you've even consciously registered what you're watching, his hips have already started turning, his hands have already started moving, and the barrel of the bat is already finding the ball with this terrifying precision that separates elite hitters from everyone else. And when he made contact, when that crack echoed through Target Field, you knew instantly, you just knew, the sound alone told the whole story, that deep resonant crack that a baseball only makes when it's been hit perfectly, hit with every ounce of force and timing working together in absolute harmony. And the ball didn't arc gently toward the outfield the way some home runs do, it rocketed, it exploded off the bat like it had somewhere urgent to be, carrying deep into right field and clearing the fence with a kind of casual authority that makes even the opposing fans momentarily forget themselves and just appreciate what they witnessed. Just for a second, just a breath, before the reality of the situation snaps them back, and just like that, before the Twins had thrown 10 pitches on the night, the Dodgers had a 1-0 lead courtesy of one of the most dangerous hitters on the planet. Doing exactly what dangerous hitters do when you leave mistakes over the plate, and this was no ordinary home run either. This was number 17 on the season for Ohtani, 17, and we're talking about a guy who missed time recently, who stepped away briefly following the birth of his second child, came back, and immediately went deep in back-to-back games. Because apparently fatherhood has done absolutely nothing to slow down the most complete baseball player of his generation. If anything, he looked even more locked in, even more focused, like he was carrying some extra energy with him to the ballpark, channeling something deeper, and the crowd at Target Field, even though they were watching their own team fall behind, had that buzz that only Ohtani creates, that specific electricity that fills a building when people are watching someone they know they'll be telling stories about for the rest of their lives. Now here is where this game takes a turn that nobody in that ballpark was expecting. Here is where things get complicated and strange, and honestly more than a little bit dramatic, because as the Dodgers celebrated in their dugout, as the good feelings from that leadoff blast were still flowing through the visiting clubhouse, something started happening on the field that gradually pulled everyone's attention away from the scoreboard and towards something altogether different. And I want to be careful here about how I tell this part because context matters enormously when something like this unfolds in a professional sports setting. But reports coming out of Target Field that night described what began as a routine equipment check escalating into something that had players from both teams watching closely, had coaches exchanging glances, had thousands of fans in the stands confused and buzzing with questions nobody seemed able to answer right away. The bat from Ohtani's home run apparently became the center of attention, officials reportedly pulling it aside, examining it, and when that kind of thing happens in a baseball game after a significant home run from a player of Ohtani's profile, the rumor mill doesn't walk, it sprints, it runs at full speed in every possible direction simultaneously. Fans started speculating, people in the press box started asking questions. The energy in the stadium shifted from celebratory to uncertain in a way that felt genuinely uncomfortable for everyone inside that building, and you have to understand something about Shohei Ohtani to fully grasp why this moment carried the weight that it did. This is a man who has spent his entire career being scrutinized at a level that very few athletes in any sport ever experience. From the moment he arrived in Major League Baseball, there were questions, not about his talent, nobody doubted the talent, but about whether he could sustain it, whether the two-way thing was genuinely sustainable at the highest level, whether the production would hold up over a full season year after year, and he Answered every single one of those questions with his performance, with consistency, with dedication to his craft that borders on obsessive in the most admirable way possible. So when your equipment suddenly becomes the subject of an investigation in the middle of a game you're playing well, when the spotlight swings from your performance to your integrity, even briefly, even without any real foundation beneath it, it stings in a way that goes beyond the game itself. It touches something personal, something that has nothing to do with balls and strikes and earned run averages. It's about who you are as a person, about the reputation you've built pitch by pitch and swing by swing over a career that has been defined by an almost relentless pursuit of excellence, and the minutes ticked by while the examination continued, while players stood around trying to look like they weren't paying attention while absolutely paying attention, while the crowd murmured and the tension in the building took on a different quality than the tension of a close baseball game. This was something else, something that felt more serious, more personal, more loaded with implication. And then the conclusion came, and it came clearly and without ambiguity. No violations found, nothing irregular, nothing out of place. The bat, the glove, every piece of equipment that had been examined came back clean, fully compliant with every standard the league holds its players to. And there is something both relieving and deeply unsatisfying about that kind of conclusion. Relieving because the truth came out, because the record was set straight, because Ohtani's 17th home run of the season was confirmed to be exactly what it looked like, a supremely talented baseball player doing what supremely talented baseball players do. But unsatisfying because the disruption had already happened. The cloud had already formed and briefly hung over the evening, even if it ultimately blew away without leaving anything behind, and according to reports officials offered some form of acknowledgement for the disruption that the inspection caused, which is appropriate, which is the right thing to do, but you cannot unring a bell, you cannot take back the minutes of uncertainty once they've already been broadcast to everyone watching, and Ohtani, to his credit, handled it the way he handles almost everything, with a quiet composure that speaks louder than any emotional reaction ever could, because that is who he is, that is the kind of player and person he has shown himself to be over and over again throughout his career, someone who lets the work speak, who trusts that the truth has a way of rising to the surface eventually, and in this case it rose quickly and definitively, leaving nothing but the home run itself to be remembered. And what a home run it was. But the game, the actual baseball game, had not stopped moving while all of this was unfolding, because Minnesota had their own agenda on this particular Tuesday night, and Byron Buxton, one of the most athletically gifted players in the American League, had no interest in allowing the Dodgers to hold any kind of comfortable advantage in his home ballpark. Buxton stepped up in the bottom of the first and answered Ohtani's blast with one of his own, a solo shot that tied the game at 1 and sent target field into a genuine frenzy. The kind of crowd noise that reminds you why home field actually matters in baseball. Why playing in front of your own fans with the energy of a packed stadium behind you genuinely changes the atmosphere of a game. And suddenly this thing that had started with a bang and briefly gotten strange and complicated was now a proper baseball game again, tied at 1, both teams with their defenses up, both pitching staffs trying to assert control. And that is the thing about baseball that I think casual fans sometimes underestimate, the way a game can go through these completely different emotional phases in the span of just a couple of innings, from excitement to controversy to tension to the clean simplicity of a tied game where everything resets and now it's just about who wants it more, who executes better, who makes the right decisions under pressure when the margins are this thin, and for several innings after that first frame. This game settled into exactly the kind of contest that true baseball fans absolutely love and that occasionally drives everyone else a little bit crazy, a genuine pitcher's duel, both sides grinding, both sides working, neither able to break through with a decisive blow that would change the complexion of things. Every base runner felt enormous, every two-strike count felt like a battle within the larger war, and the crowd stayed engaged because they understood that in a game like this, in a one-run game in the middle innings, a single swing could be the entire difference between winning and losing, between going home happy and sitting with the quiet disappointment of a game that got away. And that awareness, that collective understanding that something important could happen at any moment, is what keeps 50,000 people leaning slightly forward in their seats even during the quieter stretches, even during the innings where nobody does anything particularly memorable, because the potential is always there, the possibility is always hovering just above the field, and the Dodgers and Twins were making each other earn every single inch of every single inning, and then the sixth arrived, and if you were watching closely, if you'd been paying attention to the way Freeman had been moving through the lineup all night, you might have sensed that something was building toward him, that the game had been quietly setting the stage for a moment that would require exactly the kind of veteran presence and clutch hitting ability that Freeman has made the cornerstone of his entire career. Freeman leading off the sixth, Matthews still on the mound, still battling, still competing, but the math was starting to work against him, the pitch count climbing, the stuff perhaps just a tick less crisp than it had been in the first couple of innings. And Freeman is the kind of hitter who notices those things, who catalogs every tiny piece of information an at-bat gives him and files it away for use at exactly the right moment. Matthews came with a cutter, tried to work the edges, tried to be precise, but left just enough of it over the plate that Freeman could get to it, and Freeman being Freeman with all those years of big game experience, all those autumns and Octobers and playoff moments shaping his instincts, he drove it deep to center field with that gorgeous left-handed swing that makes it look effortless. Even when it absolutely is not, the ball carried, climbed, and cleared the fence, and just like that the Dodgers were back in front, 2-1, Freeman's home run, the kind of quiet statement that veteran players make in the middle innings of close games. Not spectacular, not flashy, not accompanied by any particular celebration, just a professional hitter doing his job at the most important moment available to him. And in a game like this, in a one-run environment where every decision and every pitch matters, that is worth more than any amount of highlight reel acrobatics. That is the kind of thing that wins baseball games. And now the Dodgers had their lead back, and the question became whether their pitching staff could protect it, could hold it, could get 27 outs before Minnesota found a way to tie things back up or push ahead. And this is where I need to spend some real time talking about what Eric Lowour did in this baseball game, because honestly it deserves more attention than it's probably going to get given everything else that happened. And I understand why the Ohtani conversation dominates. I understand why the home run and the equipment situation and the Freeman clutch hit are all going to get the headlines. But Lowour quietly put together one of the more impressive outings you'll see from a starting pitcher in a crucial road game this season. 6 innings, not one single hit allowed. And yes, he walked 3 batters, 3 free passes that could have become disasters in a one-run game, but he never let those walks turn into anything. He consistently bore down when the situation required it, found an extra gear when runners were on base, located his pitches with a precision that kept Minnesota's dangerous lineup off balance inning after inning. And here is the thing about pitching like that, about holding a lineup hitless while still being tested, while still having to work through traffic, through adversity, through the kind of situations that have derailed lesser pitchers in lesser moments. It requires an almost preternatural ability to stay calm, to trust your stuff even when the environment is hostile, to understand that one mistake doesn't define an outing, that you can walk a guy and then get 3 outs and walk away with your confidence and your lead intact. And Lowour did that over and over again through 6 innings, and the Twins were frustrated, genuinely frustrated, because they were putting together at-bats. They were working counts, they were doing the things good offensive teams do, and still they couldn't generate the kind of contact that leads to runs, couldn't string together the moments that would give the home crowd something to truly cheer about. And Lowour walked off the mound after the 6th with the Dodgers still in front, 2-1, having given his team exactly the platform it needed to close this thing out, having done his job in the most complete and professional way possible, and the bullpen received the baton from there. Kyle Hurt coming in for the 8th inning and handling his assignment cleanly, keeping Minnesota off the board, keeping that one-run cushion intact, every out feeling a little more precious than the last as the game moved toward its conclusion. And then came Tanner Scott, and there is something particularly compelling about watching a closer in a one-run game in a hostile environment. Watching a guy who has been given one specific job, protect the lead. Get 3 outs, do not let the other team back into this, because the margin for error is essentially 0, there is no safety net, there is no come-from-behind story waiting if something goes wrong, there is only the outcome. And Scott went out there in the 9th inning with that one-run lead and executed, cleanly and efficiently, 3 outs, game over, his 10th save of the season. And there is an understated satisfaction to watching a closer do their job properly in a high-leverage situation. Not because it's necessarily dramatic in the way that a big home run is dramatic, but because it's the completion of something, the final period at the end of a long and complicated sentence, the confirmation that all of those earlier moments, the Ohtani blast, the Freeman clutch hit, the Lowour masterwork, all of it was going to hold up, was going to mean something, was going to translate into a victory that would be recorded in the standings and remembered by everyone who watched it unfold. And when that final out was made and the Dodgers poured out of their dugout and the Minnesota crowd began its quiet exit from Target Field, the significance of what Los Angeles had just accomplished settled in with its full weight, because this was not just any win, this was the 50th win of the 2026 season for the Dodgers, the first team in all of Major League Baseball to reach that mark, and that means something real. That is not a trivial milestone. Getting to 50 wins before anyone else in a 30-team league means you have been consistently better than everyone else has been, day after day, week after week, grinding through the long haul of a